product uses genetic conventions. This is shown through the genre and style of my film opening because it follows certain rules. This includes institutional conventions addressing the logo and title. I used green eyes with a I brightened up and then faded. This follows the conventions of my film opening as it suits in with the genre and the style of my film opening, just thriller and drama. The genetic conventions I used within my film is placing the protagonist, Jack, in the middle of danger, as well as showing lots of action and resting in order to pace the film correctly. This allows the audience to build up a curiosity and assume it's happening within my film opening. I also created a scenario where the female character is found by Jack in the opening sequences. This therefore follows the typical conventions of quick development of characters through close-ups, as the audience is able to establish a relationship with the main characters and root them on their journey. The conventions of a narrative I have used within my film opening is following Vladimir's prop stock characters, as my film opening contains a protagonist, villain and the princess. This creates conflict and interest for the audience as the hero acts as a foil to the villain, whilst the princess brings in a love interest story. Use binary oppositions such as innocent, guilt, hope, hopelessness, trust, suspicion, and goodness versus evil, making the film more entertaining as the audience would be able to relate to or find these themes interesting. This follows the conventions, as it is quite obscure to encounter films not having these devices and methods in order to captivate the audience. My film opening is non-linear narrative, as it does not have distinctive beginning, middle and end. However, it has flashbacks between different scenes. The introduction to the characters demonstrates immediately who is playing which role, as well as their characteristics. This is shown through the over-the-shot shots and close-ups of their facial expressions. In the interrogation scene, the beginning shots are all close-ups of James as he is in the light, whilst the interrogator is hidden through the darkness. This highlights the role in which Jack plays as the main protagonist. The opening also uses mise-en-scenes and music in order to get across the genre of my film, which is thriller and drama. This follows the stereotypical themes through the fast-paced music and the transition of shots in order to build up tension. In the same instance, the more emotional and serious scenes are shown through slower-paced music and close-ups to allow the audience to establish a relationship with the characters. Used in my film opening allowed me to give the audience an instant impression of the characters' characteristics. I accomplished this through the visual style of the mise-en-scenes, such as the female character is wearing a white top. The reason for choosing this is because white can be the symbolism for innocence and purity. In the East, white can also be a symbolism for mourning and funerals, linking to my film as the female character falls into Jack's arms. Angels are also typically depicted as wearing white, and in the early westerns, good characters wore white whilst the villain wore black. Therefore, the interrogator wore all black and was surrounded in order to portray mystery, fear and the unknown, such as black holes. It is usually a negative connotation: black list, black humour and black death. Black denotes strength and authority. It is also considered to be very formal and prestigious colour. Therefore, it gives this to the interrogator and highlights the situation and confusion Jack is in, whilst also giving the impression of grief linking back to the female character. The use of wife allowed me to convey the female's character as a victim, therefore sticking to the stereotypes that females are weak and need rescuing. Originally I planned to have Jack wearing blue jeans because the colour is often associated with sustainability, truth and faith. However, I had the female character wearing a deep blue to convey the message of importance and sadness, whilst Jack wore a lighter blue in order to portray hope and trust. Therefore, I did fall back in stereotypes in order to allow the audience to identify which character and be able to recognise who is the good guy and who is the victim. The specific camera angles I used in order to capture the right emotions within my film opening is near the beginning. I used a long shot as Jack runs towards the girl, sprawled on the ground. This will fulfil the conventions of my film as the protagonist runs towards the damsel in distress. Then the camera changes to a mid-shot to create proximity between the characters and the audience as the girl whispers to Jack,
"Help me."
The audience cannot hear it, but it is visually a vital scene as it establishes a relationship. My film opening would be more suitable produced by a small independent film company. The reasoning behind this is that typical Hollywood films normally have huge budgets and directors normally incorporate major film stunts. Therefore, to distribute my film, I would screen it locally to get my product out there, then hopefully move on to more well-known areas such as film festivals like Toronto in order to gain recognition, similar to the way The King's Speech was originally marketed and distributed before it became mainstream. The genre of my film opening is thriller/drama, therefore the expectations of the audience are to have action within the clip.
I like thrillers because they're just a lot more interesting and I like getting the action of the film.
A typical Hollywood film would have impossible stunts that would keep the audience captivated and able to have time to think, keeping them on the edge of their seats. My film can be watched by a wide range of audience, however my core audiences is teenagers. The reason behind this is because from my initial research I discovered that thriller seemed the most popular throughout the bottom of the two age groups, which were 30-year-olds and below.
Because I like the suspense and it keeps you on your toes.
I attracted my audience by keeping the storyline open in order to allow my audience to ask themselves questions to what will happen next.
I like the fact that they leave you asking a lot of questions, so they're quite engaging and interesting.
Allowing me to keep the suspense through changing the scenes from faster action to slower, more serious tempo within the scenes. This created mystery to my storyline, meeting the audience uses and gratifications as it creates entertainment.
But I find that interesting because you're constantly asking yourself questions and what's going to happen and trying to figure out the mystery behind the whole story.
From the process of constructing my film opening, I have developed a better understanding of all the effort and planning that must go into a film when creating it. The previous task before we started our film opening allowed me to experiment and develop my knowledge of the settings of a camera. This therefore gave me the opportunity to use it with my film opening if I felt it would be needed. At the beginning I found Adobe Premiere confusing and unusable as it was all new to me. However, now I can cut and import sequences more confidently without help. The use of Adobe After Effects also improved my knowledge and my film as it gave me a more of a professional looking product by increasing the exposure and some of the colour balances in order to make my film opening more attractive.